All right, so guys, today we are looking at PFT 120's day 2, which is going to be our PowerPoint 3 or chapter 3 of the Youth Fitness Manual. So again, if you go to Canvas and you're checking in, that day 1 has the entire manual there. If you're ever going to need it, right? There's the PowerPoints that we did yesterday, and then here's that actual like manual. So when I say, chapter 3, I'm talking about chapter 3 in this little PDF packet, By the way, I do try to remember to mention this, but I sometimes forget. If anybody wants a hard copy of it, just let me know. And when we meet up in person, I will make you one. I will print them, and then we have like this industrial size stapler that sometimes works. But usually I just like kind of clip it with like a big old giant paper clip or whatever, binder clip. But if anybody does want like a physical copy, because you're like, you know what, I just don't want to read this on my phone, like, if I decide to get this certification in the future, totally cool. Yeah, just let me know. Or if you just like having hard copies of all of your books and stuff. I had one student one time, like they went and got it actually like spiralized. They took it to like Staples and had them spiralize it for them, and like then they had all the manuals, all the packets as almost like little books on their bookshelf and stuff. So just let me know. I don't do it by default because, saves a couple trees for the people who, are just going to toss it in the trash can and stuff. But all right, so we are looking at chapter 3 today, which is the psychological considerations. So I kind of love this day because it's a little bit of like it's almost like a little miniature, very miniature vacation built into our sort of like whole routine here. We just spent the last 8 days talking about psychology. And so like you guys are really primed up on that. And this chapter has some psychological considerations for our youth clients, which really are not that far off from our adults, except they're just a little bit more watered down, a little bit more basic. So we only got 3 pages of notes here. We got 30 slides. It's going to be a real gentle day, and you guys will be like, oh, I'm super confident, all this stuff. There's a slightly different take on it for sure. Like at the end, we're going to talk about like really they talk about like building rapport, and this is really much more, I like to think of this as like inspiration. I think at the end here, one thing that we didn't talk too much about, which is a big part of the coaching process, is how to inspire your clients. Because sometimes like, you're there and you're supporting them. Sometimes you're there and you're giving them the tools that they need. You are giving them high fives and you're trying to motivate them and staying positive and optimistic and stuff. But sometimes people just need to be inspired, whether it's through like cool stories, which is how I like to inspire my clients, or like I'm having them use their imagery and like, conjure up images of where they want to be. We're going to kind of talk about that. And with youth, that's a really big deal. It's like, we want to inspire kids. I'll never forget it's so funny. I definitely misinterpreted this when I was a kid, but I do find it to actually be quite inspirational. But my karate teacher, from when I did karate for the briefest periods of time, my karate teacher was talking to the whole class, and he was like, everybody's going to make mistakes, but it's good to make mistakes because mistakes are how you learn. And I was like a little kid. I think I was in 2nd grade. And I remember just being like thinking that was a really cool approach, but then I totally misinterpreted it, and then I started purposefully making as many mistakes as possible because I wanted to learn faster. 2 phrases that I totally misinterpreted as a kid. That was one of them, and then I absolutely 100% misinterpreted the phrase "it's always in the last place you look." Because that's just like a kind of a snarky phrase to be like, well, once you find it, you'll stop looking, But as a kid, I thought that it's always in the last place you'd look, like it's the last place you would look. And so I would just like, if I ever lost something, I would check the most ridiculous, like it would never be there places, and then stuff would just stay lost for hours at a time. But, but those are 2 major misinterpretations. But the first one really inspired me in very positive ways. It made me, feel like I was able to figure anything out. if as long as I, kind of plugged away at it. And I was like really systematic. I would like purposefully make goof off and screw up as many different ways as possible. But that inspiration was like a big deal for me as like a little kid. And that's kind of something, we want to have like moments like that when we're training like our youth clients and stuff. And so that's one thing that we're going to kind of talk about at the end here is sort of the inspiration side of things. So introductions, I already kind of did an introduction, but introduction, we are going to talk about the psychological considerations and why they are so important for youth clients. I mean, they're important for pretty much any client, but particularly today we are talking about youths because that is the framework that we are using for this course. Our objectives are to understand the 5 key traits of high achievers today, the cycle that influence can have in terms of like quality of life. So we are going to look at like what develops quality of life, and then we'll talk about like how self-perception and self-efficacy are related to our clients' success, and then lastly strategies to like I said, inspire our clients and stuff. So one thing that we've already kind of talked about this, but like now it's written down and it's like a little factoid at this point, is a lot of people think that like the mind and the body are separate, right? A lot of times it's like, oh, well, your body performs this way, but your mind sort of acts this way. But your mind influences your body and your body influences your mind. They are absolutely like interconnected in really powerful ways, like if we think about like the psychological side of it, if we think about like what our mind is, it's the psychological and emotional parts of ourselves, right? Like psychologically, it's how we think about certain things, and emotionally, it's how we feel about certain things. And I know that like all of us are going to be like sort of a different blend of this. I don't know if you guys see yourself as more of a psychological person, an intellectual type person, or if you see yourself as more of like an emotional person. These are kind of like slightly different aspects on like the mind side of things. And then sometimes, that is going to have a very big impact on the body parts of ourselves, which is the physiologic and anatomical parts, right? So if we think about like, physiology is like is what something does, anatomy is what something is, right? Well, then anatomical, it's about like basically how you physically look, and physiologically is about like how you physically function. And like I said, those are all going to be tied to the mind. God dang it. There we go. So like we definitely see like a big influence between mind and body, right? Like psychologically, right? If you believe that you are sort of successful and you have a high amount of efficacy in your brain, that's going to actually have very positive impacts on your performance. Oops, sorry. That's going to have a really positive impact on how you actually perform, right? And so then, like, if you think about like on the flip side of things, if you see yourself as like maybe not so confident, or if you see yourself as not capable, if you're stressed out consistently, you might find that you actually aren't going to perform as well. So I did want to show you guys a little video here. This is a TED video. I want to make sure it was up this a second ago, but this is a really fun sort of TED video about how stress sort of affects our body. And it's a really different approach. It's sort of a different approach compared with how we normally sort of approach like looking at stress. Like a lot of times we just sort of try to avoid stress as much as possible, and make no mistake about it, like that is actually very, very important. But a lot of times we think of stress as sort of this intangible thing, but this is actually sort of the sort of physiologic approach to it. And so this is very much like a mind-body connection, right? This is how the emotions are physically affected by things. So
Are you sleeping restlessly, feeling irritable or moody, forgetting little things, and feeling overwhelmed and isolated? Don't worry, We've all been there. You're probably just stressed out. Stress isn't always a bad thing. It can be handy for a burst of extra energy and focus, like when you're playing a competitive sport or have to speak in public. But when it's continuous, the kind most of us face day in and day out, it actually begins to change your brain. Chronic stress, like being overworked or having arguments at home, can affect brain size, its structure, and how it functions, right down to the level of your genes. Stress begins with something called the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, a series of interactions between endocrine glands in the brain and on the kidney, which controls your body's reaction to stress. When your brain detects a stressful situation, your HPA axis is instantly activated and releases a hormone called cortisol, which primes your body for instant action. But high levels of cortisol over long periods of time wreak havoc on your brain. For example, chronic stress increases the activity level and number of neural connections in the amygdala, your brain's fear center. And as levels of cortisol rise, electric signals in your hippocampus, the part of the brain associated with learning, memories, and stress control, deteriorate. The hippocampus also inhibits the activity of the HPA axis, so when it weakens, so does your ability to control your stress. That's not all though. Cortisol can literally cause your brain to shrink in size. Too much of it results in the loss of synaptic connections between neurons and the shrinking of your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that regulates behaviors like concentration, decision-making, judgment, and social interaction. It also leads to fewer new brain cells being made in the hippocampus. This means chronic stress might make it harder for you to learn and remember things, and also set the stage for more serious mental problems like depression and eventually Alzheimer's disease. The effects of stress may filter right down to your brain's DNA. An experiment showed that the amount of nurturing a mother rat provides its newborn baby plays a part in determining how that baby responds to stress later in life. The pups of nurturing moms turned out less sensitive to stress because their brains developed more cortisol receptors, which stick to cortisol and dampen the stress response. The pups of negligent moms had the opposite outcome, and so became more sensitive to stress throughout life. These are considered epigenetic changes, meaning that they affect which genes are expressed without directly changing the genetic code. And these changes can be reversed if the moms are swapped. But there's a surprising result. The epigenetic changes caused by one single mother rat were passed down to many generations of rats after her. In other words, the results of these actions were inheritable. It's not all bad news though. There are many ways to reverse what cortisol does to your stressed brain. The most powerful weapons are exercise and meditation, which involves breathing deeply and being aware and focused on your surroundings. Both of these activities decrease your stress and increase the size of the hippocampus, thereby improving your memory. So don't feel defeated by the pressures of daily life. Get in control of your stress before it takes control of you.
So that video is actually like strictly about stress, but I like it. I like to show it at this part because like it is tied to this idea that like, you know, it's kind of highlighting the fact that like our mind and our bodies are very interconnected, right? We see that like through emotional or maybe psychological stress, it creates an anatomical adaptation. Like the parts of your brain that secrete stress hormones get stronger. Because we got to remember these things are glands, right? Like they're almost like little tiny muscles in their own way. So the better you get at squeezing them, the better they are at releasing that stress juice, you know? And so like that does have sort of a negative impact on our brain and stuff. And so that starts at a really young age. You know, that definitely begins like, you know, when we're kids and stuff. And so if we're trying to help our clients, you know, we want to make like our youth clients, and make all of our clients feel better and improve. Really what we're going for is like quality of life, right? And so there's a lot of stressors that youths will sometimes feel, you know, and sometimes it's often related to things like body image, right? girls who don't necessarily feel like they look a certain way, boys who can't like athletically perform, when that happens, we experience like these kind of things. We want to try to be as empathetic as possible and sort of connect with our clients so that we can help them inspire them to improve their overall quality of life and stuff. So as we're looking at it, right, we're going to see sort of these different pieces here, right? We're going to see psychological well-being, physical well-being, social well-being, and emotional well-being. All of these things are the pieces of quality of life. And when you think about like what it is that we're hired down for, if you were like, if you strip away all of the different things that we do, like what do you hire a trainer for? It's like, well, I hire them to keep me motivated. I hire them to write me programs to fix any aches and pains that I have. It's like, all right, great. And we start stripping that away. I hire them to, do that. We strip it all away. We boil it down. What's the real reason like you would hire a trainer? What's the real reason you Ben Thomas, buy anything in your life? Sometimes, like, when you spend money on something, why do you do it? At the end of the day, the answer is the same. You're just trying to improve your quality of life. You're trying to do whatever it is that is going to result in the highest quality of life for you. Why do I always do like sort of a chore reset on Sundays, even though like Sunday is usually like a day of rest for a lot of people? Well, I find that like it psychologically helps me and improves my quality of life, because then I don't have to think about certain things for the rest of my week. It gives me a stress-free week. Why do I why is it important for me to spend money on things like a dishwasher? Even though like obviously like having less finances is going to be more of a stressor, while it's like I feel like I'm weighing my options, and to me that's less stressful. And it's all a quality of life thing. You're looking to sort of create the best versions. Why do I exercise regularly? Because I feel better. When I miss a workout session, I'm cranky, and I just know that about myself. So why are we hired? What is it that people hire personal trainers for? It's because they're trying to improve their quality of life. Now, that improved quality of life could come from somebody who wants to look a certain way. It could come from somebody who wants to feel a certain way or perform a certain way. Or maybe they just want to have more social interactions. They come to a group exercise class because they're just trying to build a bit more of a sense of community in their life. All of these, right? All of these are the right answer. Every one of them. So when it comes to quality of life, two things that we are going to look at, and we'll get to this in just a second. Actually, are we getting to it now? Oh, that's right. Okay, so before we look at this sort of quality of life thing, when I say like psychological well-being, right? What psychological well-being is going to be is like we're focusing on the idea of like healthy thoughts. If you guys remember what we talked about when we talked about cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, right? We talked about the process of reframing, learning how to sort of speak a little bit differently and a little bit more positively, a little bit more optimistically, because that's going to have really positive impacts on like how we perform. Now, you guys know that I'm not like exactly the most metaphysical person in the world. I'm not saying that none of that is true, but I am saying that like it doesn't really speak strongly to me and my experiences, right? So like the idea that like if I think a certain way consistently, I will sort of manifest something, and it will, sort of like send magnetic waves out into the universe and bring the things that I want back to me. Personally, I don't really see the world that way, but I will say this: when you think positively and when you think consistently about things, it has a very positive. You make small changes in the way that you behave and small changes in your life that have really positive benefits. This is kind of a weird example, but something that's like very personal for me that I've been goofing around with for, I guess, 8 days now. The beginning of September, I started doing this a slightly different way. I kind of changed my bookmarks around a little bit. And whenever I open my browser in the morning, I actually open up every one of these like this now. And so I go through and I like open all of these tabs like separately. And I used to like do a lot of them like kind of back and forth. I'd check my email when I need to, and I would do this when I need to. But now I've actually been like very systematic, where I'll go 1, tab at a time, and I'll do all the things I need to do related to that tab and then close it and then do the next one. And I feel like it's a little slower. I definitely don't think I'm as quick in the mornings getting through all of that stuff as I used to be, because I used to be kind of a multitasker, and I think multitasking makes you a little bit quicker. But I will say I have been less forgetful, which is something that I struggle with sometimes. I tend to be a pretty forgetful person by natural default settings, and so by putting this like system in place, I'm much more systematic about how I approach things, and it has really kind of helped me. Um, so, like that's like a small change that I made by, wanting to be a more efficient person. So I was like, do I see myself as organized and efficient? If I'm being perfectly honest with myself, yeah, there's certain things that I struggle with, but I always tell myself that I am, efficient and effective and things like I tell myself that constantly, because like telling yourself that is going to have really positive benefits. And so if we're trying to instill that habit in our clients, we need to reinforce it from the outside as well. It's like we need to encourage them to say positive things about themselves, but then we also need to like tell them positive things about themselves. And we need to focus on healthy thoughts where someone's like, oh, I'm the worst. It's like, no, you're struggling right now because you're human and everyone struggles, Um, I'm gonna steal a line from my roommate because the man is profound, and I steal lines from him all the time. But they, sort of switching to the ideas of like emotional well-being and focusing on like healthy emotions. One of the other things that I sometimes like struggle with is where I will load way too many things on my plate, and then I will not be able to get everything that I want to get done, and then I will get stressed. And once I get stressed, I start to get a little bit negative. And when I get very negative, I get really frustrated. That's sort of how negativity kind of sort of comes out in myself. And I feel like I'm not getting as much done as I need to get done. And so I get really like kind of flustered, because I have this need, this drive to do a lot of stuff. And my roommate has a great line that he will often use to sort of like call, like that his mom would use on him. And she was like, hey, just as a reminder, like, don't forget, you're a human being, not a human doing. And I love that line. I think that's a really great line that kind of helps, where it's like, it kind of is a good reminder. So sometimes there's moments where I'm sort of reminding myself, it's like, hey, like, everybody's human. It takes time and energy. And, we're not an infinite well, we're not a battery that can be recharged. Just by plugging it in. We're a battery that gets recharged by taking a day off every now and then. So that's sort of like where we're looking at like the idea of like, healthy thoughts, healthy emotions in our youth clients, especially. If you can instill these kind of habits in a youth from like a really early age, that's going to, you're doing a really positive thing in this world. You are inspiring someone to sort of live their best lives as an adult, which is great, and that we're an adult for a lot longer than we're kids. So if we get these healthy habits established then, and we aren't on a long journey through adulthood to learn these healthy habits, that's a much more effective adult. So there's also the social well-being, which is focusing on the healthy social relationships. Again, we talked a little bit about this when we talked about social cognitive theory, but creating like support systems and sort of tearing down destructive systems, right? Everybody's going to have like different support systems. And so if we can help our clients like recognize those or recognize like the lack of them, which is sort of the most common, that's going to have like really positive benefits, especially for our youth clients. So, if we have a youth client who just feels like they don't belong as part of a group, well, let's find ways to get them like sort of plugged into those social circles. I'll be honest, it's pretty rare that you're going to end up training like one-on-one with youths. I mean, it'll happen for sure. Me personally, one thing that I forgot to mention, like when we started this class, I've definitely worked with like youth clients before. However, one thing I know this about myself, I'm not that great at working with like the younger youth clients, just because I'm not a terrific communicator with little kids. I think I tend to speak really fast, and I'm a little too technical for younger kids sometimes. That's something that I kind of struggle with. So in the past, I've usually worked with like teens, plenty of teens, and then like I have worked in like, you know, team settings and group exercise and things like that for youths and stuff. Not where I spend most of my career, definitely not something that I'm like super focused in on, but I will say the times that I've done it is incredibly rewarding. And so like, you know, one of my the first youth client that I ever worked with was like a client that I had. Her she was like, hey, like my son wants to get on the basketball team and he didn't make it last year, and so he's really nervous about making it this year. And so like he wants to like improve his athleticism, and I was like, great, let's do it. And and so she kind of signed up for a couple sessions with him, and he and I kind of worked on some things, and then you know, it was good, but we weren't like super connecting. And he also like, you know, he wasn't getting super motivated because he wasn't exactly looking forward to the sessions that much. I mean, he was, but he felt like a little, you know, awkward about it. And so like the mom came up with a great idea, which was to just recruit his friend. And so then like his friend also got to join us. And so I ended up training these like two teenage kids. They like came in and they were both like working on, you know, we would go into the gym and do basketball drills. And it really helped both of them. You know, it was like they could feed off of each other, they kept each other motivated. And then like the amount of effort that I was getting back from the first kid, after that happened, was like tenfold. You know, he really started putting the effort in. You know, he really started, you know, he's much more invested. And sure enough, like yeah, the one kid actually wasn't interested in joining the basketball team. He just wanted to kind of be there and get fit. He was struggling with his weight a little bit, but the first kid made the team, which is really exciting, you know. And so he made it by his sophomore year. And then that was kind of, you know, I ended up leaving that gym really shortly after, so I have no idea what happened to that kid. But that is sort of the social well-being. You know, like we found a way to sort of use. Like, I recognized pretty early on with communicating with the mom that I was like, yeah, we are getting good workouts, but they're all very, you know, it's like he's putting the effort in because like he follows direction really well. I'm not sure he is stoked to be here every day. Like, I'm not sure how much fun he's having. And then the mom, you know, she came up with a really clever solution, which is just like, you know, let's bring the friend in, you know. And so when we did that, we had really, really positive benefits. So using, you know, we can use that social cognitive theory, recognize that lack of support, and find ways to enhance it. And then there's the physical well-being, which is the one that, like, luckily we're going to do this by default. This is something that's going to kind of naturally happen just through exercise in general. But focusing on a healthy physical life is obviously a big part of improving quality of life as well. So if you are a person who physically feels well, you know, you're going to feel like you've got a good life. If you've got healthy relationships, you're going to feel great. If you are able to emotionally deal with things properly, you're going to have an improved quality of life. And then if you are able to focus on healthier thoughts that are effective rather than unhealthy thoughts that are maybe destructive, all of those things are improved quality of life. And so if you can inspire that in any of your clients, whether they're a youth or an adult or a senior or whoever, you are going to be very effective. You know, you are doing exactly what we got hired for, which is trying to make people's lives better. You know, that's why we're here. So, key factors in quality of life, especially with youths. We are definitely going to see this idea of self-perception and emotional well-being, right? So in the same way that like quality of life and emotional well-being are very, very similar, except that like emotional well-being is a little bit more you know, psychological. But when we look at like sort of the key factors here, in terms of improving this, let's look at self-perception. Self-perception is how an individual sees themselves, right? It's not quite the same as self-esteem, which is what you'll often sometimes hear people say. It's a little bit, it's sort of made up of both of these things, right? So self-perception, that's how you see yourself. Do you see yourself as athletic? Do you see yourself as, you know, healthy or fit? Do you see yourself as effective? You know, all of those things. And so the two sort of major components of this are going to be your self-efficacy and your self-esteem. Your self-efficacy is the belief that you can accomplish a specific task. So if I asked, Thomas, if I asked you, how often do you set out to do something, and what do you think your completion percentage is? And then Bay, if I asked you, it's like, hey, if you had to like accomplish like a major task, what do you say your odds are of successfully completing that? And you don't have to have an actual answer for that, guys. I think that that's actually like pretty difficult to slap an actual, like turn this into a number-based thing. But hopefully both of you guys feel confident enough that like, yeah, I accomplished most of the things I set out to accomplish. Sometimes I think like, it's not all the time. There's certain things that like I definitely struggle with. We talk about that inside the mind of a procrastinator video that we watched in psychology. One of the things he talks about in that video is where people were emailing in about how they felt like passengers in their own lives because they didn't have deadlines. And without those deadlines, they were not able to ever get started on the path of things. And I definitely fall prey to that sometimes, so I wouldn't say that like I have 100% self-efficacy where it's like, nope, if I say I'm going to be an astronaut, I'm going to start out right now and become an astronaut, but I do like to try to like say that I have as much efficacy as possible, right? I want to, because that's going to help me foster this belief, and that's what you need to have in order to have self-efficacy, right? It's your confidence in your ability to accomplish something. If I said, guys, do you feel like we're going to train you up for, an on-stage bodybuilding competition by the end of the year? Are you confident that you'd be able to make it in that competition? Some people are going to say yes, some people are going to say no, right? So with youths, right, obviously a lot of times this is very much based on like sports and activities and things like that, but it's also a lot of times based on their looks. Like a lot of kids get wrapped up in what their body looks like, right? Because like it's an age where like, yeah, you're discovering all that stuff for the first time, especially with teens. And so like there's definitely some like confidence issues there, right? So we want to make sure if we're trying to develop self-efficacy, we're trying to develop the belief in success here, we want to push our youths outside of their comfort zones. We want to get them to do things that maybe they don't feel like they can do, and then make sure that like they are using that to actually improve and like feel like successful, right? But you do not want to do that until you've done the things that like they are going to accomplish. So you start with something small, right? You wouldn't want to take a brand new client and then slap like a 36-inch box on the ground and be like, all right, we're going to do box jumps onto this 36-inch box. 36 inches isn't actually that high, but it looks very scary. It looks very scary the first time you see it, right? Let's see here. How tall is 36 inches, right? I think that that may be 42 inches. I'm not sure, but that's pretty freaking tall. And so if you see that, it's incredibly intimidating the first time you look at it. And I would never ask a client to try to jump up on that for their very first session, especially like a youth client, because I'm trying to build up their efficacy. I'm trying to build up their confidence. So I would start with maybe a 12-inch box and then move it to 14 up to the 12. 18 is the next one. Sorry. 12 up to 18 up to the 24-inch. I would build that up slowly and slowly push them to where I'm not going like outside their comfort zone, but I am going around the perimeter and I'm pushing the boundary of that comfort zone. And then that comfort, the things that are comfortable get slowly enveloped in the circle until it's like the circle of things that I'm comfortable with is much larger than it used to be. that's going to be a much higher level of self-efficacy. That's going to be really good psychologically and emotionally for our clients. So, that is going to help, the more things that you see, like, it's like, oh, I have a big circle of things that I'm good at, right? Your perception of yourself is that, like, you are, good and valuable, right? And those are sort of like terms that you'll often hear people use a lot. And the other side of this is self-esteem. And this is the belief that they actually have that value that we're talking about here, right? So self-esteem is where, like, I think that, like, sometimes, like, people struggle with this. I definitely, like, self-esteem wise, I think sometimes I will put um others' needs before my own a little bit too, I'll be a little bit too quick to do that. That's definitely like a self-esteem thing sometimes, where it's like, oh, well, this person's time is much more valuable than my own, and so, like, it's important for me to place them first. Yeah, maybe. I mean, like, that can be a polite thing to do, but at the same time, it can also be a sign of, like, hey, like, you are a person with your own rights, and you are a person with, like, your own things that you are allowed to have and feel, and things like that. Your feelings are valid. That's related to sort of like the self-esteem side of things. And so there's two parts of this. When it comes to self-esteem, especially for youths, the big things that we see that sort of positively or negatively impact it are body confidence and body image. Okay. So body confidence is like the belief that you can perform physical tasks, and body image is how you actually perceive your physical appearance. Now, body confidence and self-efficacy are somewhat similar, except that self-efficacy is much more conceptual in nature. Like, body confidence is like, can you run a mile? Are you, how's your hand-eye coordination for hitting a baseball, jumping rope, whatever. If I said, like, I'm going to toss you a water bottle, and you're like, oh God, I'm real clumsy, I don't know if I can catch that. That shows like low body competence, right? But, like, if I was like, hey, like, we've got 6 weeks to get this task done, do we think we can do it? And it's like, oh yeah, we can do it. That shows like high self-efficacy. So it's a little bit of a slightly different thing. I think of like body competence in the short term, and I think of self-efficacy in the long term. It's one of the ways I kind of like to keep those definitions separate in my head. But with kids, with youths especially, body competence, where they feel that they may not be very good at accomplishing physical tasks, has a very negative impact on their self-esteem. They feel like they are not valuable as someone who is able to run a mile faster than them. And we know that when we're saying that, that is a very irrational way to think. There's definitely no there's definitely no reason to feel that way. But that is sort of like a lot of times how negative thoughts manifest for like youthful clients, right? Where they're like, well, I can't hit a baseball, therefore I don't matter. It's like, it's a very ugly negative, and which makes sense. I mean, this is a teenage brain that we're talking about here. It is not fully done developing. Like, as an adult, it's very easy for us to kind of step back and be like, look, this is just not a very important thing in your life, but it feels very important at the time. And so that is definitely one of the things that can lead to low levels of self-esteem. And then the other part of it is body image, right? This is the perception of your physical appearance, where people will feel like they are either, too skinny or too fat, too tall, too short, whatever. They don't like the way that they look, and therefore, because they don't look a certain way, they are not valuable. And that's also like a very, you hear that and you're like, yeah, that's an incredibly irrational thing. There's no truth in that at all, but it doesn't feel that way to like our youth clients. And so that's, again, one of the reasons, like, we kind of want to be able to recognize that in our clients and maybe help them sort of restructure their thoughts. So, like, if someone says like, oh, I'm too skinny and that's why I need to like work out, and it's like, no, like, you need to work out because you're trying to like live like a healthy lifestyle. And when you live a healthy lifestyle, guess what? Like, you're probably going to end up putting on a little bit of muscle here and there, and you might feel a little bit more confident in the long term. Maybe you don't believe me right now, but trust me, that's where this is going to come from. I always try to encourage my clients to accept the fact that, like, weight loss or muscle gain or things like that, I have nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with having those as your goals. But one thing that I always like to encourage people to think about is that, like, weight loss is almost a byproduct of a healthy lifestyle. If you live like a healthy lifestyle often, the things that will sort of naturally happen in the same way that, like, if I get a new job that puts me in the sun all day, my skin's going to get darker because I'm going to be exposed to more UV rays, right? The byproduct of getting my new job is that I have like probably a rockin' tan, well, the byproduct of eating vegetables and exercising regularly, is feeling better. And yeah, maybe you do end up like looking a way that maybe you want to look. It's a byproduct of this overall healthy lifestyle. And so that's one of the reasons we want to adopt this. We want to come to sort of an organic way of sort of like bringing this into our lives. So all of this kind of comes together to make up our clients like emotional well-being, which is, a big improved quality of life, right? If we're trying to create as many of these healthy emotions as possible, we're trying to improve our clients' self-esteem, which means, yeah, let's work on their body image, right? Like, let's work on their confidence. Let's work on their self-efficacy as well. We do those things, people are going to see themselves in a much more positive light, and their emotional well-being is going to be improved, right? So, just like we saw in the video, we know that like if we lose the ability to control, I'm just realizing right now, I think this is normally where I show the video. I think I showed it at the wrong time. So we know that like your emotional well-being is very much linked to your ability to like control our emotions. One of the things they talk about in that video is they talked about like, rats that were not sort of like raised by their parents and stuff had a lot of more of a diminished ability to deal with things like psychologically. And so like they would be prone to stress much more often. And the thing is, like, it's, the stress is it's a muscle in a way. We get better at getting stressed out, we get better at making that stress juice, and then we start making more and more and more of it, and it starts flowing around. Similar to how, like, your pancreas, if you're having like a high sugar diet constantly, your pancreas gets really good at producing insulin, and then eventually there's so much insulin flowing around your body that, guess what, your cells are starting to become resistant to it. If only we could become resistant to freaking stress the same way, but doesn't appear to work that way. We just get more and more stressed out instead. But that loss of control, that loss of emotional control leads to depression, leads to anxiety, all kinds of like psychological problems. So there's sort of the framework of why we're doing all this stuff. Checking in with you guys. Do you have any questions so far? Thomas, Bay, how you guys feeling? Guess we're feeling all right.
Yes, all good.
Okay. Let me know if anything's not clear. All right. So how do we, so one thing that we have to do, by the way, if we're going to do all this like highfalutin, positive sort of Tony Robbins stuff with our clients and get them inspired, if we're going to do all this, we have to have sort of a strong emotional connection with our clients. We're going to need to be in a place where our clients feel like they can trust us and feel like they, are actually like on this journey with them, right? And so we need to build rapport. So rapport, this is a concept, from, again, this is from your regular textbook, so you guys want to be super familiar with this term, but it's an individual's trust in someone else, right? So this is like how much trust somebody has in like another individual. And so, we want to first, if we're trying to develop rapport with our clients, we want to identify what's important to our clients. We'll ask them questions and sort of acknowledge certain things about them. We're trying to figure out like what is, like I said, like really important to them, right? Whether that's like performance in school, performance in sports, maybe they just want to have fun, that's what's important to them, whatever it happens to be. And one of the things that we do want to kind of focus on, especially because like we are working with youths here, is we want to focus on like short-term intermediate change, right? We want to focus on like change that they can make like really quickly, because then it will give them the confidence to feel like they are actually accomplishing something. Youths do not exactly have the longest attention spans. This is where I still feel like a kid. I don't have a very long attention span. But generally, our youth clients are very focused on the here and the now, right? And so if we want to develop rapport, well, guess what? We're probably going to also need to focus on the here and the now. And if we can do that, our client is going to have a much deeper amount of trust in us, right? And so how do we do that? Well, we want to incorporate activities that are important to them. We want to always make sure that, like, we're not creating, like, again, this is one of the reasons why we don't create goals for our clients. We help them restructure goals that they create, right? Like, we want to make a goal that's like effective and instructive. We want to make a goal that kind of like pushes us down the path, but we do need to make sure that our, and so like we are experts in being able to do that, and our client may not be, which is why we're here to help them restructure their goals. But if you are like encouraging your client to do something that they're just not passionate about, it's not going to happen, right? So we need to incorporate activities that are important to our client. If our client is, again, we kind of go back and like, school performance is what's important to them. Great. That's what we're going to talk about. Sports performance. Awesome. We're very good at that, right? So focusing on the here and now, and then focusing on things that are important to them, and then acknowledging and addressing any fears or any fears that they might have, any anxieties, or, any pieces of like the boredom, right? Sometimes kids are going to get just, disinterested in something out of nowhere. Their opinions are just going to change pretty rapidly, and there's, now they're no longer like, I don't know, I just don't care anymore. Like that happens sometimes, unfortunately. So we need to be kind of aware of that. We need to be able to recognize that so that we can overcome it. And if we can overcome that and acknowledge that, that's going to, lead to much higher levels of sort of achievement here, right? And then we also want to help our clients understand the benefit. This is one of the biggest ways that, like, I like to inspire people. You guys know me. I love to give like a technical breakdown of things. Like, so when you're doing this is the physiologic effect that it has. This is how it's changing things in really positive ways. Love to help my clients sort of understand the benefits of things by really like kind of breaking it down. Maybe don't get too technical with your teens, with your youths and stuff, but definitely like one of my favorite ways to inspire my clients is to kind of help them do that, right? And so if you're trying to develop that rapport with your clients, make sure that like you are always emphasizing your commitment to help them. You're trying to build up their trust as much as possible. So continually use the phrases like, hey, I'm in your corner, like I'm here for you, we're on this journey together. You guys might even notice that like I use the word we a lot whenever we're talking about stuff. You might notice like in the emails, I'll say like, a lot of times it's stuff like, let's get over there and knock out that homework, or like I'll say, we're going to do this, we are going to do, I like to use the same type of language that sort of indicates to my clients, or in this case, even to my students, that like, we're in this journey together, like, this is something that we are both sort of participating in. And hopefully that builds rapport, hopefully that builds like a level of trust. I want my clients, I want my students to know that like we're here in their corner. So when we talk about like inspiring our clients, right, like I said, it's a big part of like what we do, and building this rapport, it's going to start with these sort of 5 key steps here. So this is a little bit of a different breakdown than what you're going to see in your textbook. Your textbook has it, pretty, I mean, honestly, there's like, hey, you just need rapport. They kind of keep it really brief. But here's sort of 5 key areas that you can focus on to develop rapport with your clients. First one is vision, right? The first one is like helping your client clarify what it is that they specifically want to accomplish. But this also helps you a lot by clarifying what it is that your client wants to accomplish, right? So like asking your clients like what they want and why, the why part is huge, guys. Will have a big impact on, very clearly understanding what the vision is for this, activity, this program, this whatever it is that you are working towards, right? You definitely want to like get a clear idea of that. Again, I can't. I always use the same example because like I've literally seen this in my career so many times where people are like, it's like, what do you want to work on? It's like, well, I'm here to lose weight, and it's like, why do you want to lose weight? And they're like, well, my doctor said I need to lower my cholesterol. I was like, okay, so what you want to do is you want to lower your cholesterol. It's like, do you care about how you look? And it's like, not really. Like, I'm a confident person, and I don't care if I necessarily like, I don't need abs or anything. And it's like, okay, so what's important to you is your health, right? Great. Let's focus on, goals that are related to that. It's going to be much more powerful and like gives you a very clear idea of like their vision, um, with kids, they are not visualizing things in the far distance. It's just not happening. I don't know any kids who have major long-term goals. A lot of times when you're working with youth, you want to focus on short-term, immediate interests, right? The oftentimes like by keeping that on like a short focus, you are not falling into the trap of like an attention span problem, where it's like, I want to do this. And then like, 6 months from now, it's like, hey, how's, working towards this one thing going? It's like, what? Oh yeah, I forgot about that the next day. That's a lot of like youth attention spans sometimes, right? So we do want to focus on sort of short-term stuff. We want to stay in the here, we want to stay in the now. It's kind of funny. We'll get not to knock any of my younger students that are maybe watching this video or on call with us or anything like that, but like there are definitely times where like we've gotten people who are rolling right out of high school straight into Sochi, like, within like a couple weeks. And there's always a part of me where I'm like, oh man, like we got to make sure we keep this person motivated, because what'll happen is like we get about 3 months into the 9-month program and they're like, this thing's 9 months, I got 6 months to go. And I was like, I'm out. Like they start to like kind of lose that motivation, and it's like, it's always one of those things where it's like I'm trying to like convey. It's like, look, 9 months is not that long. It may seem like you're kind of slogging through it sometimes. It's going to seem faster and slower, but like it is a very short period of time. Like think about where you were 9 months ago. It wasn't that long ago, like I think about something that I did like we are in September right now. I remember like this January creating like my yearly goals and like creating a strategy for how I'm gonna get to buy this freaking house that I want to buy, right? This investment thing. And I'm going to reset this goal, by the way, January of 2022. I'm going to immediately start working on my second one. My goal is to be able to get 10 under my belt. And so like I look back 9 months ago, it seems like I've been, it seems like just yesterday I created this darn goal. So it's like 9 months is not nearly as long as you sort of think it is. So helping our students like kind of recognize that, and but also avoiding that pitfall is by focusing on like the immediate changes, right? Look at their immediate interests, figure out like what some short-term goals are, and things that they are excited about in the now. Like football season starts this week, right? So if somebody's trying to improve their athleticism, hey, let's focus on getting good at football stuff for a little bit, and then football season is going to be over at the beginning of the year next year, right? Let's immediately start focusing on, let's roll into basketball season, focus on the short-term stuff. Next thing you need to do, you need to come up with a strategy. You guys know that I love talking about strategy. This is always step 2 in our problem solve the problem, right? Step 1, identify the problem. Maybe that's kind of similar to creating a vision, right? And step 2, solve it. Come up with your solution. What's my solution for if I got a client who needs to lose weight, we're going to diet and exercise. If I got a client who wants to improve like their vertical, I'm going to work on their strength, and I'm going to work on their velocity, their force production, their velocity production when it comes to leg stuff. I got a client who wants to run faster, I'm going to work on building up their endurance, and I'm going to work on developing that leg power, right? There's my strategies, right? It's actually quite simple sometimes when you break it down. But it's we want to set specific goals that are actually going to, again, promote action. The best goals are the goals that are instructive in their nature, right? Simply by having them, it's almost like a blueprint on what to do. those are the best types of goals, right? So strategy is what's going to lead to success, right? So set goals that are specific, set goals that are challenging, set goals that are timely, and focus on like short-term goals, right? So looking at our goal setting class that we had recently, right? We know that we love the SMART acronym. The reason SMART goals are so effective is because they are goals that do promote action. If you read like a SMART goal, I want to like, instead of like, I want to lose weight, and you have like a SMART version, which is like, I want to lose 10 pounds of fat over the next, 40 days, right? And it's like, great, there we go, right? You know exactly like, I want to lose 10 pounds of fat. So we're not just trying to lose 10 pounds of weight, right? And we got 40 days to do it. That means that like, every 10 days we need to lose, actually I kind of goofed up my math here. Well, lose 10 pounds. Yeah, we need to lose a quarter of a pound, every couple of days, right? So that's actually pretty easy. So how many calories is that, right? It's very instructive. Like when you have like a SMART goal, it almost tells you what to do. It's almost like blueprints for how to achieve like whatever it is you're trying to achieve. That's why that system is so effective. So we're focusing on SMART goals with our youth clients. It's going to be very effective. It's going to develop strategy. And if we're focusing on short-term goals, we know that like that's going to be immediate in the vision. And that's also going to be much easier to develop a strategy, because sometimes long-term goals, it's like there's a lot more working parts to it. And then once we've kind of got this, we got to get our clients, these two are going to be very interconnected. We need to inspire belief and persistence in our clients, right? We need to have the belief that they're actually going to do this. Sometimes people will set goals and then they will not, they'll be so afraid of success, it feels like, that they don't have any belief that they're actually going to get there. It's like, they wish they could do this thing, rather than like believe that they are going to do that thing, and that's not what we want, right? So we want to enhance this belief in our clients, in their ability to accomplish this task, right? So teaching them to behave a certain way, behave their way to confidence. I love that. Again, fake it till you make it, rather than sort of think their way, right? It's like, oh, I wish I could do this, or I think that I'd be happier if I could do that. It's like, could, like, yeah, let's do it, like, then do it. That's the confidence side of things. And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about like having like a toxic level of toxic positivity here or anything like that. I just want to make sure that like we are enhancing the belief that this is going to happen. So what are some strategies that can do this? How do we have like a strategy in place, rather than just saying over and over and over, then do it, then do it? That's not actually very instructive. It's not helpful. How can we lead someone to this? Well, again, imagery, visualization is a really great tool, right? If we can help our clients visualize where they're going to be in 6 months, or where they're going to be in, if it's a youth, probably 3 months, that's going to enhance that belief, right? Sort of telling our clients to, sort of see themselves where they're going to be down the line is a great way. Like I look at like, what my life's going to be like, consistently all the time, like in the future. And that's the thing that sort of motivates me. And I was like, yeah, well, and then I can ask myself, am I doing the things that are going to result in, that reality, or am I doing things that are sort of pulling me away from that? I can ask myself those questions. And again, instead of just becoming like, a thing written on a whiteboard or a goal, it becomes instructive, which is always helpful. So helping our clients like visualize things, and then helping them actually use imagery and practice is going to be huge. Remember, we talked about like the science of practice and how you can actually practice in your brain and it will have actual like positive benefits in real life. Well, practice the idea that like, you are going to look the way you want to look. Consider that every single day, or you're going to perform the way you want to perform, or you're going to feel the way you want to feel, right? Visualize that every single day, and it is going to reinforce, and you are going to make small, sometimes unnoticeable changes that make all the difference in the world. And then draw on your past successes. I do this with my clients constantly, where they're like, oh, I'm hopeless at like losing weight. I've been on like crash diets here and there. It's like, yeah, but have you had success on those diets? Like, yeah, but I always gain it all back. And it's like, well, I mean, it sounds to me like you are successful at losing weight. What you struggle with is maintaining weight. So our goal is not necessarily even to learn how to lose weight. We know how to lose weight. It sounds like you know exactly what to do. Our goal is to find a way to adopt this as like a normal lifestyle, right? Our goal is to help you adopt these healthy behaviors. What are ways, what are some things that you have succeeded in? Draw on those successes and use that to sort of fuel the fire that is our belief. And there's going to be roadblocks, and that's where persistence comes in. Here's the thing: there's going to be setbacks. Everybody's going to hit a plateau. Everybody's going to have a bad day. Everybody's going to goof up. Everybody's going to have negative thoughts. These are all going to happen. Like, death, taxes, and negative thoughts. These are just things that will happen to everyone. And that's okay. Like, it is okay to have like a bad week. I think I was telling you guys I had a crap workout last Thursday, where I just couldn't get the weight up. I was trying to get the freaking bar off the ground. I just felt like my back hurt. I felt like I couldn't do it. And I was just like really struggling. I backed off, lowered the weight a little bit, kept lifting, got through the workout, felt like crap, was so frustrated. Came inside and was just, and at one point one of my roommates is like, you all right out there? And I was like, yeah, because he heard me cursing and stuff. And I was like, God. He's like, you frustrated? I was like, yeah, I'm just frustrated. I just bad day. And I was like, I don't know what caused it. Maybe I just don't have as much glycogen stores today. It could have been a bad night's sleep without realizing it. There's just a lot of things. Like, we are in August, and I always sleep poorly in August and September. I sleep poorly when I'm hot, and so I was just like really ticked off last week. Next day, killed it, PR'd on my military press, absolutely crushed it. I was like, all right, well, turn that around quick. That's persistence, right? If I didn't have persistence after that bad workout, maybe I just fall off the wagon completely and just stop exercising. We don't want to do that. So encouraging our clients to be like, hey, just get to the gym. Even if it's not your best workout ever, it's going to have some type of positive impact, and it's going to reinforce the habit. And sometimes the habits are the hardest things, right? And then don't forget to reward successes and forgive setbacks, guys. Yeah, we're going to goof up. You're going to go to fast food. You're going to skip your workout. You're going to, skip your cool down or something. Lord knows everybody skips their cool down. Forgiving the setbacks and rewarding the successes is definitely a big part of what we need to do to kind of keep people persisting on the journey, right? We are the main support system that our clients have when it comes to enhancing that persistence. And so helping our clients, by being their support system and be like, look, you did goof up. It's okay. Everybody does. That's part of the journey. What is important is what you're going to do next. You get to decide, this was out of your control, having a bad workout. This was out of your control, that you gained a bunch of water weight this week, but you get to decide how you are going to approach this next. And that kind of persistence, that belief, this is where they're very tied together. You need to believe that you're still going to meet your goal and persist when, stuff gets in your way. And then there's the learning side of things, right? Aside from all of this, one of the best ways to build rapport in your client is to help them monitor their progress, record that progress, record any setbacks that they have, and show them. God, I freaking love having an actual workout journal where I can be like, look at your improvements, love that. Record their progress report, record their setbacks, use that information to make course corrections. Be like, you know what? You did struggle last week. That is the same day of the week that you struggled the week before. And it's the same day of the week that you struggled a week before that. And it is after your cardio day. So maybe we're doing a little bit too much cardio, too lengthy. Why don't we try a little bit of like interval training for a little bit the day before? Keep the session short, about half as much time, and see if that has a positive impact. You feel like you have more energy coming into the gym the next day. There's our strategy, right? We come with a little bit of strategy to overcome that setback. We're recording it consistently. We wouldn't have caught it, that data allows you to draw like stronger conclusions. So record their progress and record their setbacks, look for all of it, and use that information to help your clients make course corrections. And we're in a good spot. So summarizing everything up today, we know, like I said, the mind and the body are linked. Changes in one definitely leads to changes in the other. If you have like psychological well-being, you're going to have physical well-being. Those are going to lead to more like stronger social relationships, and emotionally you are less likely to sort of, if you're like me, fly off the handle. Your self-perception is always something that we are trying to enhance, especially in our youth clients. That is going to be made of their efficacy and esteem. Self-efficacy is their belief that they can accomplish what they set out to accomplish, and self-esteem is sort of how they see themselves and how competent they are when it comes to physical tasks, right? Youths are very much tied up in how well they can run or jump, or how they look. Those are really like, the kind of shallow things that kids are kind of focused on. We definitely want to build a good rapport with our clients. That's going to be the most important thing, especially with youth. If they don't trust you, if they don't believe in you, because maybe they don't feel like you believe in them, you're not going to have a very strong connection with them. And so we need to have sort of a strategic process for this, which is this sort of 5-step thing that we're looking at here. Constantly help your clients, establish their vision and help you understand that vision. Then you can come up with strategies to help them achieve that vision. We want to make sure they actually believe they're going to do it, and they are going to forgive setbacks and learn from those setbacks and move forward. And then we're going to focus on how to adopt these healthy behaviors overall as like a lifestyle rather than just a thing we're doing right now. And that's about it, guys. That is the last time we're going to talk about the sort of psychology of stuff for quite a while. We've got a psychological day for our senior clients, which will be next mod. Just talk about how like the goals of seniors are a little bit different than the goals of sort of our average adult clients. But yeah, Thomas, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Love that. Babe, what about you?
Good.
Love it.
I'm feeling good.
You guys feel like you are, Freudian experts? Hopefully not. Especially because I hate Freud. I'm putting that on the recording. Let it go down in writing. I hate that guy. But hopefully this is you found this inspiring. I hope you can apply some of this to your own life. I know that I'm constantly, whenever I teach this mod and I do the psychology stuff, I get extra motivated. I find that I journal a little bit more. I write my stuff down. I'm a little bit, I wake up a little bit earlier consistently, rather than having those days where I roll back over. Hopefully you guys are sort of feeling motivated.
Indeed.
All right, well, let's kill the recording.